Obviously excited to get going on Arizona for us to get out and practice and really kind of dive into this and take a look at it. Very difficult challenge in front of us here. Cliff on the offensive side of the ball doing a great job. New quarterback, very talented player. They have a lot of real new skill players that are outstanding. Tight end position was redone. Their offensive line, they think they've really done a good job of building that up. So offensively, we've got a big challenge in front of us. Defensively, Vance Joseph on that side of the ball, kind of converting that back into the 3-4 kind of look, if you will, with a kind of a 4-down defensive line principle standpoint, penetrating defense, one gap, kind of attack you vertically, create negative plays, attack the ball, and put a complement of pressures, both out of base and out of sub. So I do a good job with that. And then, obviously special teams, Jeff Rogers has been there for a while, was at Chicago before that. Really outstanding special teams coach. They have aggressive players on their special teams. They call it aggressively. They do a great job with their coverage units, and they're very explosive in the return units with the skill players they have. So it's kind of all three phases here that we have to deal with this weekend that are going to be really important for us to execute at a high level as we, look towards the game. So should be a good work day for us. We'll grind through it here today and stay on track and then just keep going through the course of the week before we travel on Friday.
About that offense, obviously being new and with Kyler, but defensively with Jones and Suggs on the edge, just what kind of problems did those guys, obviously veteran guys, have done a long time this league, what did they offer them?
Yeah, I think what they do really from that standpoint is they collapse the width of the pocket. Both of those guys have an extremely high level skill set in the passing game. They also play the run very well too. Suggs with his power, his ability to hold the edge. Chandler with his length, he does a good job of holding the edge. And then when they transition into the pass rush, Suggs' speed off the edge, his ability to turn the corner, speed to power pass rush, the ability to come underneath and counter. Very aggressive pass rusher. And then, Chandler has a, full arsenal of weapons that he uses on the edge. He can kind of line up everywhere from that standpoint. So we have to be ready for both of those guys to be in, different positions across the line of scrimmage to be able to handle them. It's a real difficult task when you have two edge guys like that coming at you from a protection standpoint.
Your side, the defensive leader, how difficult is it to defend a guy like Kyler Murray, unscripted plays where he get out there in the open field and use his natural ability?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. A guy like Kyler with his ability and his speed and athleticism, and I would say really just his quick decision making. Once he kind of makes that decision, the ball's either out or he's trying to extend the play and or he's got it tucked and he's running. One of the things when you watch him run that's really impressive is, the way that he sets up the blocks in front of him. He does an outstanding job of kind of attacking the angles of the tacklers, whether it's the guys in the secondary or the linebackers, when those angles, those approach angles that they're coming at. He can freeze those guys. He'll get them to cross over. He'll get them to flatten out. And then he's got this amazing ability to dip in, dip back out at top speed and get outside to the edge. And at that point, a lot of the pursuit gets collapsed inside. The receivers do a good job of covering those guys up on the outside from outside in. And then he gets to the sideline and he's gone. So it's really his running skill set and the way that he attacks the defenders as they're approaching him to tackle him. It's it's like a running back. It's a high level.
Just to be clear about something that you said at the jump, you guys leaving Friday? You said Saturday, I guess.
We're traveling out. Yep.
Yeah, why choose to do that?
Same thing we did last year, going out to Arizona. It was kind of, we liked the the approach to it to get out there and get settled in. It allows us we have a little bit of extra time this week, as it being the first game of the season. So just thought it was a good approach last year. We're going to stay with that.
Does the heat have anything to do with that too? Because it's going to be theoretically over 100 there.
Not really, not from a standpoint of us getting acclimated or anything like that. I mean, it's just, we're not going to be doing any extensive practicing or anything like that in it. So it's more just a travel thing.
On Murray, broken plays, zone read, maybe even some RPOs. I mean, how important is the fundamental base you've been building throughout training camp and making sure that, I guess, the eyes and the muscle memory is trained to really keep him contained?
Yeah, I think from that standpoint, it's definitely fundamentals just in general because of the unknown of what the plays are going to be. So we're going to have to rely on those fundamental techniques in order for us to stop what they're doing once we get into the game and kind of figure it out. We've seen, obviously, the tape of what they've done preseason-wise. We've seen the Texas Tech tape. We know the offenses. There's different things that, they can do out of those offenses, combine it with the quarterback run game that they have. So whatever that is and it declares, we're not obviously going to be able to have enough time to, work on and master all of it, but we have to be able to go back to that foundation, and that foundation is going to be playing with good fundamental technique. And that's where you start. And then, you get into your run fits from there. So it's certainly critically important for us to make sure that we're doing a great job up front of trying to control the line of scrimmage and trying to make sure that the run game is handled from that standpoint. And when we get into the game, making adjustments, that'll be the biggest thing for us once we see it from that perspective.
Touched on it a little bit there, but obviously there's another guy in that backfield that you have to worry about quite a bit, David Johnson.
Yeah.
Just how much does his versatility paired with what Kyler can do really challenge what you're going to have to be able to counter with?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely, he's a great player for him. I think it's something that is being overshadowed a little bit right now, his ability to run the ball. It's kind of the threat with the quarterback read option play. Obviously, the main portion of that is the regular run play that goes along with it. And, from that standpoint, whether it's David Johnson or Edmonds, it doesn't really matter. They're both outstanding backs. They have a great jump cut ability. So some of those schemes where you're kind of, running with the offensive line and creating those seams and those gaps, they take a tremendous advantage of that on the cutback plays. They're able to kind of get all the way to the backside or take it out front side because of their speed and their burst ability. And once those guys get into the second level, it becomes a big problem from a tackling standpoint. So that's the number one threat with the run game is those guys first and foremost. And then obviously with the, both of them, Johnson, obviously the ability to get out of the backfield and catch the ball begins another whole threat in the passing game, whether he's going vertical out of the backfield, which they like to do in the fringe in the high red area, or in the empty sets where they're just going to move him out of the backfield and put him out into space and try to take advantage of a matchup. Those are big issues for us.
Some of your players and coaches have talked about is just how intelligent C.J. Anderson is. Can you just speak to, and I think you even sort of alluded to it, just talking ball with him, how much you enjoyed that when you came in?
Yeah.
Can you speak to how high his football IQ is, A, and then B, how that helps the other running backs, how what sort of asset he can be to you guys
Sure.
in that sort of aspect?
I think he's done a great job through the course of his career of really kind of cataloging a lot of the different schemes that he's been in, along with a lot of the different defenses that he's seen. And those are the conversations that are probably the most fun or, kind of exciting. Like, hey, we saw this, you did this, or hey, this guy was running this, and this is how we attacked it or handled it. It kind of just gives it a whole different approach when you're talking to a player like that understands the concepts and then also the ties of who's behind those concepts and why, they saw them, for what particular reasons. And then you try to bring those conversations back into the current moment as far as what we're going to see or what we might see week in, week out. And, what that does is really just tries to give a value of experience to maybe the players that don't have the same kind of experience. Certainly from that standpoint, the game moves very quick, and the more the history of it or just kind of the cataloging of the different things that you've seen, if you can get that across to the players that maybe haven't seen as many reps or as many looks, I think it just gives those guys an edge. So it's been great, from those conversations, just being able to talk, football in those terms of the strategy behind it and why. That's really kind of the biggest thing.
You call plays in the game the other day. Maybe you can address why you didn't let him, but do you think he could be a coach one day? I mean, is that something that maybe...
Good question. I didn't know about the tweets or calling plays, so I was probably behind the Gatorade buckets then. So I think CJ can do whatever he wants to do. I think he's got a great football mind and he enjoys it and he loves it. And I think as long as you're passionate about whatever it is you want to do, you'll find a way.
You've mentioned, I think, both yesterday and today, just the importance of adjustments in this game, given the unknowns and I guess some of the variations they're going to throw you. Is this a game that's maybe more so on the coaching staff to correct as things are going along?
I don't know if it's certainly a big part of it. Coaching has always got to be number one. We got to do a great job of coaching, and that's the bottom line. But I do agree with what you had mentioned earlier. We were talking about is just fundamentals. Those got to be on point too. It's really important. So I think just collectively, those two things, the coaching part of it, the understanding the concepts, the learning, being able to adjust within the game, getting good information during the game, some of that stuff goes at a high pace. Sometimes the looks are a little bit different, and trying to decipher what's going on is going to be critically important. And then just being able to execute, that's going to be the number one thing. Execute out on the field and start with good fundamentals and go from there.
You mentioned the special teams too, the challenge there.
Yeah.
I'm sure Charles Washington was a tough cut for you guys, just how much emphasis you put on that side of things. When a player moves like that, like we always assume that there's some things that have to change just so they don't take too much information over the other team, but like how much adjustment do you have to make when a guy leaves this close to a game? Yeah,
it's a great question as far as that's concerned. I think for us, this game, it's never about one player. It's got to be a complete game. So whether it's offense, defense, or special teams, it's going to be everybody on the field working together and really being so early in the season and obviously the first game of the season, it's going to be about just 11 guys being on the same page, especially in special teams where speed and space is such a big issue for us. I mean, Chuck's a great player, so certainly he's going to be someone that we're going to have to, deal with and contend with, and, and just make sure that we know where he's lined up from those situations. But it's got to be everybody working together from that standpoint in order to have success on the play. It's not just kind of one guy. If that makes any sense, especially in special teams. Those are, just tremendously difficult plays, the speed, the execution, the timing, all of it has to go into it. And again, there's only so many live reps that we got during preseason. We tried to get as many as we could, but especially with the group that's out there, all at one time, this is kind of, will be unique from that standpoint of all these guys out there together in those particular plays, trying to gel that unit. It takes a little bit of time.